I'm Andrew, and this is Blaster Breakdown. Now, if this blaster looks familiar to you, you need to get your eyes checked. Also, drink a bit less, eat healthy, and be kind to your knees, because you could be getting as old as me. Today's build is 100% an homage to a 2017 build that Cobber did, where he installed this Marley Yang UG1 body kit on a blue Prophecy. This kit is long discontinued, so you won't find it anywhere. I found one while tidying up my workshop. To bring it forward into 2025, I paired this with a brand new Narf Core made by Airzone. So this is now a remote line semi-automatic HPA blaster, controlled by a solenoid in the back. The Narf Core is a bit of an update on Spectre's Super Core, now manufactured as DMR Core. We'll have a look at the insides in today's video and run through how I put this one together. If you hang around to the end, we also might have some gameplay footage. Before we start though, if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to like if you enjoy my content. All right, let's have a look inside. Okay, I want to start off by having a look at the Narf Core itself and picking out a couple of differences between this and the original Super Core and the new DMR Core designed by Spectre. Now, functionally, these cores are essentially interchangeable. The external dimensions are the same. The attachments for your push fits are the same. The size of the receivers is the same. So a blaster that you mod for one core or a 3D design that you print should fit any of these cores just the same. So if you are familiar with the internals of the Super Core or the new DMR Core, you'll see some similarities and some differences with Narf Core. So starting with the similarities, the pusher itself that chambers a dart into the breech piece is essentially the same. It works in the same way. It extends and retracts thanks to this spring. Now that sits inside this piece that screws into the front of the core. So that's essentially the same as what you might already be used to. Another similarity is the end cap at the back of the core. So it's got a quick exhaust diaphragm that sits inside here, and it's got a female 1/8 BSP thread at the back that I've got a straight push fit screwed into there. So again, that's the same, and that just screws into the back of the core. Now, differences. Inside the core here, we've got this lip, and what that lip does is it holds the internal stem in just the right position to interface with this quick exhaust diaphragm. So with the Super Core, the internal stem screws into this female thread until it's in the right position. Here, this lip, I guess, simplifies that. So we just have this piece sitting against that, and the spacing is always going to be perfect. That lip, we also have the base of the pusher sit against. So these two internal pieces sit either side of that lip. The other difference is these three parts fit into these three cutouts in the base. I guess on the inside that holds it firm when the rear piece is screwed in place. So that's the main differences. This internal lip, the simplification of the inner stem, and a slightly more complicated end cap. So assembling the Narf Core, we can go either way. I'll start at the back first, sitting like so. And you can see it's wobbly now. Now that's quite stable, held against that inner lip. And then the front. Don't need to over tighten anything, and that's the core put together. Now, one other difference is the brass receiver pieces that Narf Core comes with. Now, these breech pieces have a flared opening for the dart to be chambered by the tip of the pusher before being fired. The original Super Core receivers were a female jet thread that took threaded barrels available from Monkey Mods, for example, that were common in the hobby a few years back. Narf Core has this as an option. The more recent DMR Core comes with worker threaded barrels, so from Harrier or Seagull blasters. So that's an option for Narf Core as well. So this one has the worker thread. But there's also an unthreaded option that will take any 16mm outer diameter barrel, such as from a worker kit for a Prophecy or a long shot, or really any barrel with a 16mm outer diameter. You can use a bit of Teflon tape for a seal, and I guess electrical tape around the outside to hold it firm if you need. So Narf Core gives some additional options for using different barrels. Okay, that's Narf Core. Okay, so inside the shell itself, I've removed all the internal parts, only keeping the mag adapter retention piece here. I'm not worrying about the lever that controls it because I don't need to remove my adapter. I cut away and ground away plastic molding on the inside here to make additional space to fit the core. Also cut away plastic inside here to allow space for the air line coming through, but also the electrical wiring, and of course fitted a switch here that'll be activated by the trigger. The electrical circuit is very basic. This connector here will then connect to the solenoid that sits at the rear. And here we've got an XT30 connector that my LiPo will be plugged into and sit inside the grip of the blaster. So simply pulling the trigger will connect power to the solenoid, and that will flip position from open to closed, and then back again. So that's very simple. The pneumatics, also very simple. I'll have my remote line coming in the base of the grip, going out here to the solenoid at the rear, and then coming back into the blaster into the rear of the core. So that will sit there. The front of the blaster, I've got my brass receiver. That's epoxied into this 3D printed piece at the front. So typical standard muzzle attachment design. I think this was designed by Blastertech. And so that sits in here. And then my Talon adapter. And then my Talon adapter here. And that's really all we need inside the body of the blaster itself. So a couple of screws hold that in place. My airline will sit there, and then I can close this up. As usual, I've changed out the original screws for these hex head self-tapping screws. Got to attach my hose to the back of the core, and that just presses in. End cap. The end cap has a couple of screws. Okay, so that's the main part of the blaster, all taken care of. The next thing to show you is the stock. So standard worker stock. I've made space here for the air coming in to go, and also drilled a hole right through the middle, is that here, for the air coming back from the solenoid to the core, and that's all going to be completely in line down the middle. And there's the attachment for our wiring. The solenoid itself is a Mach 35 series, so standard normally open configuration. When the air is attached, the core will be pressurized. When I pull the trigger, the solenoid begins exhausting to atmosphere, and that flips the quick exhaust valve at the back of the core, firing the dart. And I did some cutting at the rear of the stock to make space for the solenoid to sit neatly in the rear, including the push fits. So at the moment that's kind of free floating. Thread my hose through. Touch my wires, touch my air, and then this will just slide on, a little bit stiff. Okay, so that all threads on. It's fairly tight, but tight means neat. And you can see how neatly the solenoid sits at the rear there, only this piece here really protruding. Now I can test all my connections. Battery first. I can hear the solenoid switching positions when I pull the trigger, so that's good. And my air, as soon as I touch the air, you can see the pusher extend. When I pull the trigger, while I'm holding the trigger, the air is cut off, the pusher retracts. When I release the trigger, the next dart is chambered. And if I stick a magazine in, it's all lining up nicely. You can see when I release the trigger, the next dart is chambered. Of course, I've got no barrel attached, but it'll still come out. Next dart ready. And that's popped all the way through. Okay, I'll tell you about the body kit now. So, as mentioned, this one's a fairly odd one. Must have had it 7 or 8 years now. Designed for Prophecy or Retaliator shells. Comes in 2 main parts. So at the rear we've got a mostly white section with a decorative non-functional charging handle bit at the rear. And the front part we've got this dark grey bit that connects to the muzzle piece, and then a white piece over the front. There's a couple of bits that screw in at the front, holding it all together. Underneath here, there's a standard Nerf size rail that the original pump would slide along. I've replaced that with a bit of blue Picatinny, angled foregrip at the front, and a little light just for some tactical points. That's held in place with a few screws here and there. I realized I actually need to put this one on before I attach the stock, so let's go back in time and do that. So this piece goes over the back. The front piece screws in like a regular Nerf barrel. It slides over. There we are. Reattach my stock. The battery I can just poke in here. Okay, now I'll show you how I attach this end cap. I drilled a little hole for the hose. You may notice I didn't actually attach these two screws, so that lets me just gently pry that apart until that sits exactly where it should be. And so now that end cap is nice and firm. A remote line connection goes in, so we can see the battery inside the grip there. And the last thing is my barrel. So this is the 310 barrel from Seagull. I've put a bit of Teflon tape around the thread so it's nice and firm inside the brass receiver. And I've got a fancy B-car at the front. So there we are, everything put together. Looks very neat. I'm really happy with this. Let's do a final firing test. It all still lines up. Dart's chambered. Beautiful. All right, this one's ready to take out on the field. Let's see if I get some tags.
All right, let's see how. Remember that ultra stock we did way back in the day?
Oh, on the run. Oh, lucky. So there you have it. That's the Marliang UG1 Narf Prophecy. Lots of fun to run on the day. Got me plenty of tags. I can't wait to use this one at future events. If you've enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.